Okay, 7, let's call this meeting to order. Morton Grove Public Library Board of Trustees, September 19th at 7 p.m. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, if you could call our roll.
Mr. Elders,
Here.
Mr. Byrd, Mr. Callahan, Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mrs. Gonzalez,
Here.
Ms. Novick, and Kathy Keats is here.
And we have the approval of the minutes of the board meeting of August 15, 2013. Do I have a motion?
You do,
Okay.
I will second.
And a second.
and Mr. Berg is arrived.
Welcome.
Oh, good.
Yes. Outside of Grace Lake.
Okay, this is as far as we got. Took roll, I'm going to change you to here. And Mark moved to approve the minutes, and I seconded, and that's where we are.
All right, good. Thank you.
Any questions, comments, or concerns, changes? If none, can you call the vote?
Trustee Peters,
Yes.
Trustee Nolan,
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Trustee Goldstein,
Yes.
Trustee Calhoun is absent, Trustee Byrd, yes, and Trustee Elders.
I will be abstaining, I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay.
And we have public comments on agenda items. Any this evening? None. President's report. I really don't have a report, but I am proud of what they did downstairs. And in your report was the ahead of schedule and under budget comment, which is always welcome, so great job.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I raised it.
Did you go?
My granddaughter. And the elevator is much
Good,
better.
good, good. Yeah, I'm really pleased with the way everything turned out, and, you know, special thanks, as I said in my report, to Kevin and Ann.
Oh, yeah.
Services and Claude. They were a huge help in, you know, getting us to where we were at, so.
It looks it.
It turned out really well.
Yeah. So treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report, you'll see an increase in cash on hand. That's because we received a big influx from the state this month, but that's about it for the rest of the year as far as what we're projecting that we're going to get. Other than that, a $200,000 bond came due on August 13th, and the report that you have doesn't show that it was rolled over, but it is.
Yeah, it's not, there wasn't one that came mature, it was, apparently at that point in time, money had been earmarked to possibly be invested if we didn't need it for expenditures, and we did not, so that's gonna be, a bond is gonna be purchased with that.
Okay.
But that is not yet reflected, it hadn't been purchased at the time of our report.
Other than that, does anybody have any questions?
I have one question on the income statement.
Mhm.
It's positive, it's just a question. Grants, item number 5920. What is this?
The per capita, isn't it?
Yes, that's
That
the
is
per
the
capita,
per capita.
rating, yeah. We have to apply for every year.
And it looks like it's gonna be about $1.25 this year per person for the next year, according to the
Wow.
website. Well, that's more than,
Up
I
from
think the
$1.
first year it was like $1.07 or something. Any other questions? Any questions on the check register? If not, I'd like to.
I would. I'm looking
Oh, I just.
at, add some comments on it. Just- I'm intrigued sometimes by what we spend money on. And it's probably all wonderful, but I am intrigued by it. Okay, at the very end,
Oh, yes.
I don't know, Norman Ruiz is probably a fine man, and we gave him $400 for, what did we give him $400 for?
It's for, I believe it was the youth services, it was programming. I don't remember.
And what is Smarty Pants for five?
That was also youth services programming.
Okay.
I want to make a single comment.
I can't, I
The,
can find out specifically what the programs were that had youth services.
No, I just, if you feel they're worth it, I have to, you know.
Good question. So interest income, this year versus last year.
Yes.
It kind of shows that the switch to FEMA was a wise thing.
Yeah.
So $440 to $1,800. It's small overall, but it's a huge increase, so that was well worth
And
it.
they have their hands on it all the time, they're constantly. Yeah.
That was good.
Thank you.
Time well spent, good job. So any further discussions? If none, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
And a second? No further discussions? Can we call the,
Sure. Trustee Elbers,
yes.
trustee Byrd, yes. Trustee Goldstein,
Yes.
trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
trustee Novick,
Yes.
and trustee Peters.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not aware of any committee meetings, finance, building and grounds, or policy for this last month.
We have finance meeting every month, but
Oh,
that's rolled into
but
mine.
we rolled into treasurer's, which was great. So staff reports from our director.
I don't have anything too much to add to my written report. I did want to let the board know, based on our discussions after last month's meeting, and further discussions with the head of adult services, that the projections position will be, the job description actually has been rewritten to indicate that accepting that position, you have to be 17 years
So,
old. Yeah.
There's no need for that.
Fair enough.
Right, so we just wrote it into the job description since that's the guidelines the board gave me, and it seemed that everyone was in agreement with that, and so following the lead, I did write that into that position. That position currently is empty and probably will not be filled till at least October or November at this point, as we're looking at other staffing models in that department, so.
All right.
That's it.
I have one
Yeah.
question, about the meeting with personnel. Do they, the staff people, during the meeting or at the end of the meeting, do they have any, ability to input the usefulness of the meetings for them, or,
Are you talking about
Just-
this meeting?
I'm
Or-
talking, no, I'm talking about the annual staff in service.
Oh, yes.
Do they have a chance to have input of the usefulness of the in-service? Is it
Yes.
appropriate,
Mhm.
to other programs that might be interested in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little surprised with the cost, but I just signed a check for $1,800 for a presentation on bullying.
It was, our staff and services on sexual and other types of harassment, and staff did actually feel that it was well worth it. So,
Good.
yeah.
And
Something
they
that
felt
a lot of-
comfortable with the subject and could do something.
Yeah, in fact, several people commented on how, what a good job the particular presenter had done, so.
Do they have input on what topics are covered?
Yes, when we're planning the staff and service, we do try to take into account topics that staff may want to see covered. It's always difficult to find a topic that is meaningful for each department
Right.
because their needs can be so different.
Right, of course.
So we do have a tendency to focus on this kind of library-wide policy, public service.
Well, that makes
customer
sense. I mean, I
service
have
types
no
of
problem with
things.
that.
Mhm.
I would think if there's something that one department really wants, that a separate meeting could be held.
So we try to build in some time for that as well, so the departments have an opportunity to do something that's more specific to their particular departments.
Until this year, the board had been included in the invitation to the staff day. Is there a reason that, is that a change in policy or?
We don't actually have a policy about that. The feeling was that that was a topic that might not been as meaningful as some of the other ones that we've had in the past, or as interesting to the board or apropos. So that was also sole reason for that.
So do you want the board to be invited to the staff
Well, in the
service day?
beginning, we were told that it was because it was the only time that the employees could put our name to a face, or we can take, we would sit at different tables and have lunch and blah, blah, blah.
Something to think about.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
in my experience, Court had not been at staff and service days, so that was not something I was used to, so.
There were usually, what, 3 or 4 of us?
I haven't made it, every time they have it, I'm out of town.
Oh, that's right, I
And
ended
that's
up
what
giving a
happened.
speech for you,
So, yeah,
that's right.
so-
2
In the
minutes.
past years, though, many of the trustees have attended that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
All right. I have a question on your stats.
I
So,
do
and it's
too.
an easy one. So
Okay.
website visits, and I don't know. So this month was just shy of 9,000, and August of last year was just shy of 18,000. Are people not hitting the website as often because it's easier to find things now at one time, or do we know what might
That's a
drive?
big part of it.
Because it's really easy to navigate.
Right.
So
Yeah,
when
and
I
that-
go
and
there, I don't
that's a
have to
big part
click,
of
click,
it.
click, click, click. and-
I think some of it too is also a change in the analytics, we're able to count things at
Sure.
a better level. So-
Yeah.
But a lot of it does have to do with the fact that the website is so much easier to
Yeah,
navigate
yeah.
now, so.
Good.
I think the real comparison is gonna be, comparing kind of, once the new site was up and fully functional from year to year, so we're still kind of on that cusp right now,
Yeah.
where your builder was still transitioning over, so.
Some of us were, on the stats, I have a couple of questions too. On the interlibrary loans, requests of Morton Grove, it's 172, and we filled 81 of them. Are we missing somebody, or?
Those are requests that libraries make of us.
Right.
And that we refill. Normally, that would be things that we would choose not to circulate, like if it was new material, if it was audiovisual material, video games, those kinds of things.
Oh, so you're including things that are turned down?
Exactly,
You're
so
including things that are turned down.
the one number is the total number of requests, and the requests filled are the ones that we're able to supply the material.
Oh, okay. And I noticed that the internet usage in-house is up quite a bit in new services, up 75% over last year. And didn't know if maybe that was coming up in any meetings, if we have any plans to increase the number of computers to the youth services department or anything like that.
We haven't discussed that. I know that a lot of what we've been doing in youth services is moving away a little bit from the desktop, and we're doing more with iPads in that department too. So certainly, if the head of youth services brings that to me and feels that we need to put additional computers down there, we can look at accommodating that. But so far, that has not come up. It may
I
very
just
well.
noticed a 75% increase.
Right, yeah.
That jumped out.
That's through
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
No, that's the internet. That's people that are
Well,
logging
they can
in.
get online.
Yes, they can also get online, but that's not included in that particular statistic, that number.
Yeah, because that would make it even a higher number.
Yeah, certainly we'll look at ways to accommodate that usage, should that be something that the youth services department feels that we need to do.
Any idea of why the circulation is down in both the teen department and the youth, actually, all the departments, but noticeably in youth?
Well, youth
down
is
50%.
missing at least 6 days worth
That
of
was a
checkouts
week.
because they were closed for 1 week and we didn't have a staff in service. So that does impact some checkout statistics. Circulation statistics at many libraries are trending down somewhat. We also suffer from a lack of space. For every item that we're having to add, we're almost at the point where we're having to withdraw an item. So that does impact circulation statistics as well.
Well, shouldn't it be a wash though? You're not taking any space away, you're replacing.
Right, so it's just, a lot of it's just, and once you kind of max out your collection size, it does start to impact your circulation statistics.
Yeah, I just noticed overall, the entire number is down 10% over last year again this time.
And that is a common trend in many libraries, unfortunately.
They cover it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything from corporate council?
Nothing this evening at this time.
All right, unfinished business. Time to kick off a review of the bylaws.
I'd like to make a proposal, if I may.
Okay.
It seems to me, well, having worked on bylaws in a number of organizations, it's one of my favorite things to do is read bylaws, which I'm being very cynical about, in case you didn't figure that out. It seems to me that maybe the policy committee or a temporary committee of some sort be formed to look through the suggestions, if there are any more suggestions, and evaluate what they think of them, so that we can look at it. Not everybody can spend 2 hours here going item by item by item, but it could be pre-done possibly. I don't know, I'm looking for a way to, in my experience with bylaws is they take a lot of time, because somebody's always got something up their back that's
I have a
keeping it
question.
going on.
What brought this on?
A number of things that we've done to improve some of the operations in the library, and there were some, let's say, loose rules that weren't actually put onto paper, such as disposition of tapes, disposition of certain assets. I've read articles in the ILA and ALA that ask the libraries to really take a good look at their bylaws and make sure that we pretty much establish the proper rules of the road for the board and the library in general. So I had 18 hours in a plane going back and forth to Europe, and I had the time to sit there and compare all of their stuff to ours. So I took a shot at it, provided it to Pam, and asked for commentary. So it was pretty much, it was just time to take a look at it.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we form a committee of, either a committee of the whole or a committee of whoever wants to be on it, chaired by Ms. Novick, to get together a revision of bylaws in a form that can be voted on.
Oh, good.
Whatever way you wish for it.
Yeah, speak up and.
What, no, I know the answer, I'm not, I may look naive, but I'm not.
Barbara, you did make comments.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
And I
and
just
they
had
were
some,
excellent.
I just had some questions on some of its suggestions for expansion. And I thought if they could be discussed at a small level first, smaller than we're small. Maybe there's things that you're gonna tell me this is crazy or whatever, I'm not experienced here. Maybe we'll go in and say, let's do all the changes. I just thought instead of going letter by letter and number by number, we could save some time that way.
Understood.
I'm open to it. What does the rest of the board feel? I mean, you can't, if you're going to do a committee of a whole, it's a board meeting. So,
Well, or,
you
I
can
said
have
or, yeah, or whoever is interested. If you want to ask who's interested.
Yeah.
I just want to have enough time to discuss different things and not just brush over it.
Because these are, little words can make big differences in bylaws. And you can have unintended consequences too.
Well, who would second the committee?
Nobody, well, nobody.
So, we can create a bylaw committee.
Or would it be the policy committee?
It seemed to me it should be the
It should
policy.
be, I think.
I
that
did,
we
it
have
was
a-
just
I
another
asked for it
thought.
to be the policy committee last time,
We
or
have a
the
policy.
executive committee, and
Yeah, I think we have a
It
policy
never-
committee, they should probably.
it
look
never
at that.
met.
I mean, I just.
Well, policy is more related to the
Internal.
operations of
Right,
the library.
right.
Yeah,
I realize
this is the
that.
special
This would
committee.
be a bylaw committee
Yeah.
whose sole purpose is to
I
evaluate
have no
jobs.
problem with it one way or another. It was just a thought.
Would you care to chair that one?
The policy committee or bylaws?
Bylaws.
Yeah, I'll share
Who would like to be
in
on
my
it?
free time.
I'd like to be on it. I'll be on it.
3? Okay.
Well, if you two would stay after so we can find the time.
Sure.
Because I'm back at work now, so my life is a little more confusing.
Right, you have a motion, you need a second.
So I need a second to create a bylaw committee.
I'll second that.
Who first did it, please?
Peters?
I did.
Pete, okay.
So what's your name? Barb?
It's a nice word.
All right, so it's a motion to,
Form a committee, a bylaw committee to
Yeah.
review our bylaws and present it in a draft form to the entire board.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
around the table.
Nays? None? Okay.
It's a good idea.
We have a bylaw committee. What is your targeted due date?
Next meeting.
All right.
I want to get it done fast.
Do you want to discuss
We
any of
need
this
to check
tonight?
room availability,
Yeah.
and that also is considered an open meeting, so I need
Oh,
an
I see.
agenda
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so,
And it's a one-line agenda. review
Yeah,
bylaws.
I
but I need to check room availability, and it does have to be posted.
So
There's three of us.
it's.
And even though there's 3, other members may join in the
anybody
meeting.
can show up.
Does it have to be held here?
It does have to be held in a place that.
Public
the
A public
has
place.
called.
So that settles that.
Your kitchen table's not.
Yeah.
My kitchen table is very large and fits lots of people.
You're yeah. You're gonna leave your doors open?
And I'll leave the doors open as long as they don't mind the cats.
Okay, so then there is a preference by the board not to go into this tonight. Okay, next item. Committee appointments. Per the current bylaw, we should have reset some of those in July, but then we missed the meeting. We missed the meeting.
Actually, May, our
May.
annual is May,
All right.
and none of those committees ever met.
Well, right.
So
and
I
that's-
would suggest we keep it until May. Because there was 0 policy committee and 0 building and grounds committee and 0, and if we're gonna be changing bylaws and maybe changing the dates that committees start and end, maybe we should just let it roll until it should be changed, and we're gonna be changing everything next
But
time.
there are some errors in committees right now.
Well, we don't even have chairs of the committees. They haven't even met.
Policy
So-
committee, yes,
No.
actually,
They've never met. The executive committee hasn't met.
Yeah.
And the building and grounds committee has not met.
then we're not doing our job.
Exactly.
Well, you also need a reason to meet, so
That's true.
that will work on. So,
I would like to make a suggestion, I don't want to make it as a motion, but perhaps after we go through the bylaws, we can go and reset committees, whether we stay the same or not. Just as a,
That's true.
And there's also new people on the board that maybe want to serve on one.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
We
You know what,
follow
you know what
basics that
maybe
there
we
should
should do tonight is
be
at least
a head
set
of
the
a
chairman,
committee.
so that we don't
Yeah,
have
more than one
more than
committee.
one
Right,
person
yes,
on
right.
That should be.
chairing any particular committee.
which is, so I want to set the committees like this. So the executive would still be Elbers, Berg, and Peters. Finance would continue as Peters, Goldstein, and I guess the president's a pro tem member. Building and grounds, I'd like to reset as Barb Novick, Gonzalez, and Goldstein. And then the policy committee be Berg, Kalinag, and Novick. So each trustee has involvement in a committee. Any trustee can attend a committee meeting and provide input. But per the bylaws, I'd like those people to be officially involved.
I'd like for them to actually meet.
Me too. So, those would be our committees going forward.
Who's on building and grounds?
That would be Goldstein, Gonzalez, and Novick, if you'd like to.
Can we pick chairman? So they can set the agendas and set the dates?
Well, so there'd be a chair of a building and grounds
Right.
and a chair of policy,
Right,
because you chair finance.
right. And you chair executive.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to suggest our chair voting.
Okay.
And since CalMag's not here, you want to put him in charge of policy, or?
Definitely, because I don't.
Or yeah. So
Oh, I
it
think
pays-
that's the right way to do things.
It pays to attend the meetings.
Yes, it definitely
So,
does.
all right, Dave, you have your charge. All right. Thank you, team. We'll move on to new business, the interlibrary loan policy.
I have a question about that too, before we get into the policy itself. Should that have come before the policy committee?
I mean, it can, but I mean, the committee meetings aren't necessarily required. The board can choose to review those sorts of things, you know, as at the board meetings themselves. We chose to move forward with this particular policy because there has been a change in some of our interlibrary loan procedures, and there's been enough changes since the old policy was written that we felt that it was appropriate to make that policy change at this time, because we've made some dramatic changes to our procedures, and we're also using a different system for interlibrary loans now. So that it makes sense. at
Did
this
you just
particular
provide
point.
this as the current one?
Yes,
And this is the
for
draft?
comparison.
Okay.
I have actually worked on a policy schedule
Yeah, that's true.
for review, what needs to be reviewed. There are some policies that have to be reviewed
Okay.
every year, every couple of years by the, there's requirements by the state that the library does look at those. So I will be happy to, you know, share that information with the policy committee, so that we can review a number of policies, so that we can get on a schedule, so that we can rewrite, if necessary, or at least review those policies.
For accurate appropriateness.
Right, so we don't have to call a committee meeting for one policy.
Right.
Because that's, I mean,
Yeah,
that's where we were with this one, is that this was just
Okay.
one particular policy, and enough had changed recently that we, you know, the department heads and myself felt that we needed to address this now, rather than wait and operate under our old policy, given so many of our procedures have changed.
Yeah, the old policy made it sound like people from outside libraries could come in here and make requests of
Yes.
the public library. And this policy does not
Correct.
allow for that.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
That was my first question.
Okay. And like we had talked before, I was just wondering, ebooks, can we request ebooks from other libraries? Ebooks that are owned by other libraries, or ebooks that are owned by us, do we allow outside non-Grove residents to check out our ebooks, and should that be addressed in our policy?
I do not, I'll answer the first part of your question first. That is not allowed, and that's a contractual agreement that we make with the ebook vendor. That is not something that we could sit here and say, we'd love to lend our ebooks, but we are contractually not allowed to do that. So,
So if, let me just,
Mhm.
okay, so if Niles has a book that I want to read.
Correct.
As an ebook,
Mhm.
I could still go to the reference desk and ask that we purchase that ebook. That
Sure.
would be the only way to get that in the ebook form if you're a patron.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that answers that part of the
Yeah.
question.
I don't see, I understand your concern about that or your question about that, but I'm not sure that the interlibrary loan policy is the right place to put that, because that covers so many other, you know, that has a reciprocal borrowing implications, it's
Well,
contractual.
just under materials not available for loan,
Mhm.
I just thought maybe a bullet point saying electronic media or electronic books.
Sure, we can add e-resources.
Yeah.
several questions.
Okay.
Clarify for me again,
Mhm.
at the first bullet point, loan and photocopy requests will be accepted only from the registered Morton Grove Library card.
Mhm.
So that is saying that if I lived in Skokie and you were the only people that had a book,
Mhm.
I would have to go to the Skokie Library?
No. This means that if you came into the if you lived in Skokie and you were the only library that had a book, you are welcome to come to this library and use your Skokie library card to check that out. That is what we call reciprocal borrowing, which is
Okay.
not what this policy covers. We have a
Okay.
separate reciprocal borrowing policy, and there's also some Rails policies that pertain to that, as well as state law that cover that. What this particular bullet point pertains to is if you, as a Morton Grove Public Library card holder, want a particular book that we do not have in our collection, you can come to the reference desk or the public service desks and request that we ask other libraries if they have it, and they will send it to us for you. That's what that means.
Oh,
Does that?
sort of. The third bullet.
Okay.
And it means that Skokie people can't come in and ask Morton Grove to get a book for them.
They
They
can-
would
they-
have to go
Yeah,
to
they-
Skokie
To
and
their
ask.
library.
Yeah, they can come in and they can check out one of our books.
Right,
right,
But they
but
can't
yeah.
come in and ask us to
To
get a
do a
book that we
search.
don't own and have it
To
sent
do the
here.
search for
Right,
it.
Right,
Right.
well, or to buy it for
Or
them.
whatever, yeah, of course, okay.
And that, I guess that kind of becomes important because libraries like Evanston have a set budget for requests and they run out partway into the year. And so here, we don't do that here.
Well, we
Right,
can,
all
we
year.
accept purchase requests from people, but we don't.
From other libraries?
From patrons of other libraries, but the librarians look at each of those requests, and if they see that, so for example, if someone from Skokie came in and they requested that we purchase a book that we did not own, usually what will happen is, obviously, if it's not something that is worthwhile for collection, we wouldn't purchase. But sometimes the librarians may look at that and say, you know what, this would really be of interest to our community members too. This is the first time we've heard of it, so we're gonna buy it, that
Right,
kind of thing.
but we'd be actually buying it for
For
our
our
collection.
for us.
Right, so
yeah.
we don't have any limitations on who can make those requests. We just have, you know, we follow policy or procedure based on how we fill those.
The third bullet down, second line, an item is missing or long overdue. How are you defining the word long?
It was 2 months in the last
I
policy.
believe it was 2 months, it's about the same time.
Should we
Yeah.
put, should we?
Should it say
Yeah.
2
Well,
months or 60 days?
no,
or-
because I'd rather leave it a little bit vaguer,
Vague.
because we oftentimes leave it up to the discretion of the librarian or the person helping, making the request. Oftentimes we can tell, you know, something's long overdue, you know, depending on what the item is, sometimes you can look at it and know that that isn't probably coming back at that point, that sort of thing, so I think we're better off leaving it more vague. The other thing is that it's more cumbersome for the staff than to go in and exactly count how many days since something became overdue. So I would prefer to leave it a little bit vaguer, because that could change. And it's very much a.
And people won't complain.
And long overdue means different things can mean different time periods for different types of items, because our loan periods are different. So a long overdue DVD could be long overdue before, say, a long overdue book, based on, you know, renewals and those kinds of things. So, you know, something we're gonna circulate for, you know, 7 days, 3 days, 7 days, something like that, it's gonna become long overdue faster than something that normally circulates for 3
Yeah,
weeks.
so
Do
you
you
don't-
have, oh, I'm sorry.
So you don't feel that it is a vague term, no matter, you know, I understand what you're saying, but it's still a vague term.
Mhm.
You don't feel that will cause trouble.
Do you have a definition for when something flips into the missing category and you repurchase it? Where, you know, where it flips from long overdue to, you know what, this is
Mhm.
coming back?
I don't think it does automatically go to the same. Does it?
Well, if we cannot find a book on the shelf.
Right, if we can manually change something, we do that. Like if someone comes up to us and says, I can't find this on the shelf, or we go to look for something, we can't find it on the shelf, what we do is we change that to missing.
Right.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well,
If-
Sarah runs the reports, and then shelters look for that.
Right, no, I
particular
understand that.
item.
What I'm saying is that I don't think that, you're asking if there's a point that
I'm
if
asking
the
is there a
system
point-
automatically flips over to missing from long overdue?
Yeah, well, when, if there's a list of books that are missing in action,
Mhm.
you know, when they're officially declared killed in action, then you have to go and buy them again.
Mhm.
Is there a time, or is there a list of
Yeah,
missing things that
we run
get
a
reviewed?
report every, you know, we can set the time frame, we run a report, these are the things that are missing or long overdue, and, you know, we can say whatever time period we want to do that, and then we can circulate that to the librarians, and they can choose to repurchase. Or, you know, say, you know, this is missing, there's something newer, we don't need this any longer, that kind of thing.
Am I going on? Okay. Let me have these few days in advance and I'll mark everything out. The seventh one down, you're talking about when materials are not free.
Mhm.
Does the person that's loaning them, do they have to sign something, or what's the procedure that they know they're gonna owe so much money?
Who, the patron?
The patron,
We tell them.
you just tell them so they can come
Well,
and say
because
you
we
never
can
told
usually
me.
tell, no, when the mechanism that we use to request interlibrary loan, there's a way for people to know, well, first we can see if someone charges for loaning. A lot of institutions are starting to do that, but we can see that, so we try not to request from those institutions. If a particular item is only available at an institution that charges for interlibrary loan, we would then notify the patron, usually by a phone call, saying, the only place that has this item charged us $10 to loan it. Do you still want to do that? And then the patron has to agree to that, in which case we will pass that charge on to the patron.
I'm looking at the cynical side of, okay, you tell them verbally and they agree, and then when the time comes, they'll say, you never told me.
They get charged anyway.
Okay. I'm not trying to be funny, but.
Well, because, I
you
mean,
know,
because
I
that,
live in
we
a
have
cynical
to
world.
pay that library, because.
Yeah, I understand
so,
that, I mean,
yeah.
I do understand
Yeah.
that, just
We would
saying-
require them to pay, and, you know, that, and then that would go into their record.
And you don't think it would be important for them to sign something,
I
that
would
they
think
can actually
so.
do the borrowing? I know it's an extra step, and it could be a pain in the butt, but I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be a card or something that says, I understand that there's a fee, whatever.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm a
I
cynic.
understand what you're saying. Some of it is just a process of expediting the loan more quickly,
yeah,
because
yeah, no, I
that would require
understand
them
that.
to come in.
That's why I'm saying of hesitation.
Or,
You know,
or
I mean,
shoot
these
you an email,
policies are posted.
or it could be done. Well, you know what's funny, I do a lot of things on reserve, and in the current, patrons who do not pick up interlibrary loan item by the return date of the item to the loaning institution will be assessed a fine of $1. I never do that, no one ever told me that. I haven't had my whole life.
Which, again, is another reason that it was time to revisit the policy. That there were some procedures that were not being done, and so why were they in the policy?
Or maybe there could just be a short explanation that's just slipped in the book when they're doing an interloan that says there may be a fee.
They wouldn't get the book. We will not expedite the loan if they do not agree to the charge.
Could
They
we get
did
an
it.
email
I'm sorry?
from them? Could they send an email, could you send an email to them and they send
Not
it
everybody
back?
has email. And you don't always have their address. It's a
Well,
limitation.
I mean, I
Could you say
understand, I think
please
some of
come?
what we're talking about also is more procedural and not necessarily policy. 'Cause what we're saying is that we're gonna
Okay.
pass
It
on
is
the
definitely
charge
procedural.
from the loaning library to you if there is one. How we do that is a procedural thing, it's not the policy.
Well, from the policy standpoint, I was thinking, is it important, just because Barb brought it up, to actually have a contract instead of just a verbal contract?
Well, that's still,
It's still
That's
So
procedural.
we are getting too far into the weeds on this.
Yeah,
Basically,
still
basically
procedural,
the
that I can
policy,
understand.
the policy
We
is saying,
need to
we agree
adopt the
to
policy.
I
pass on the
agree,
charge
it's a
to the
procedure.
patron.
I
And
totally
then-
And
agree.
that's legal? Are we, you know, 'cause we're not allowed to charge for anything.
We're not making
So-
any money, we're just passing on the fee. We're not saying, oh, we're gonna charge, the library that's gonna loan it to us is charging $10, we're gonna charge you 15, and we're gonna stick that $5 in our,
Right.
take the staff out to lunch, slush fund. So, no, I mean, we're absolutely legally allowed to do that. We're just passing on the fees to the patron from the loaning library. This happens very,
I was
very,
gonna say,
very
how often do we
infrequently.
do this?
Very
Because right now,
often.
there's a contradiction.
Yeah,
In the thing, it says, library requests only from libraries that do not charge. It says there, and then another place it says materials only available at a fee will be, it's like, they're
Again.
mutually exclusive.
Right, another
which is
reason to revisit the
revisit.
policy, so
Exactly.
it's a little bit clearer that, you know, we absolutely endeavor to get it free. Almost always, you know, we can. There are instances that we cannot, and in that instance, we will pass the fee on to the patron.
Like a single digit percent or a 20%?
I was single digit,
Okay.
a small single digit.
Okay. Good to know.
One other question on
Mhm.
procedure.
Sure.
When I ordered a book on the internet from here,
Okay,
and it was on the shelf.
okay.
And I came in the next day to pick it up, and it wasn't there. Because the procedure was, when it was evidently on the shelf, it was available to anybody.
Yes. Well,
Even though it was reserved.
you reserved it through the computer system, through the
Yes,
catalog?
Yes.
Okay,
It's
I
all
might
right.
look, I'm questioning that because actually the system is set up to not allow that. That if a book is on the shelf, you are not allowed to place a hold on that because the computer system, the way it's currently set up is that it does not allow holds on on-shelf
But
items.
it took it,
Do you remember what it was?
put it.
Do you remember what the book was?
Yes, it was the Roundhouse.
We're gonna look into that because the
I
system
still have
should
it
not.
on reserve, as soon as it comes back, but it's just a procedural thing, I was curious.
Yeah, well, the system is, as I said, right now, the catalog system is set up to not allow holds on on-shelf items. Meaning if you look in the catalog and you see, oh, it's available, it should stop you from placing a hold.
Right, you
Say
should run
this-
quick and
Right,
grab
it
it.
should say this item is available, can't place hold, I can't remember the exact terminology. In that case, when that happens, you certainly feel free to call, you know, the library, we can pull it and hold it for you.
That's fine.
But, I'll look into that particular title, but
It's
right
all
now,
right.
the.
I was just curious about the procedure.
Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. That particular procedure shouldn't have happened.
Okay.
You know, we can choose to change that further down the road, and in which case then there would be people that would pull
I
that
should
book
have
off
made
the
a phone
shelf.
call. Okay.
Yeah, okay, we'll look into that.
I have one other, under loans to other institutions, materials available for loan.
Mhm.
Why the difference that audiovisual and magazines will not be loaned out of state and other things will? Just curious.
Historically, it's because those items are a little bit more fragile and
Okay,
have a
so-
tendency to, the potential for damage in transit is
I buy it.
greater.
I buy this, okay. I was just curious if it sort of
And,
fascinated
you know,
me.
and they oftentimes have shorter loan periods as well, and so it takes longer for them to get out of state, so there's a couple of different reasons.
Thank you.
This entire issues of magazines, is there a way to ask for a partial issue of a magazine?
Yes, under photocopies, we will photocopy it up to 20 pages. Is that what you're talking
So
about?
somebody just wants an article, and
Right.
they happen to have a magazine,
Mhm.
you'll run out the
We
20
can
pages
make
and shoot it to
photocopy
them.
and send it to them, or
Now,
send it
do
to them
you
as a
charge for
PDF.
those photocopies?
Not usually, so, but it's just up to that 20 pages for free. We don't do a lot of photocopying anymore, so it's very rare. If we are sending something like that now, usually we'll scan it in and send it as a PDF to, with an email. So it's less paper involved.
This, all items are loaned out for the standard loan period plus 1 week. Does that 1 week, is that for the transit of it, or does that mean that there's a 1 week renewal on
That's for the
everything?
transit, so that's built in, so. So that if it takes 3 days for an item to get to the loan, to the, you know, requesting library, their patron then has it for the 3 weeks that our standard loan period is, so then.
The standard loan period for whatever type
Exactly,
of material.
exactly, so
it
if we're
is.
loaning something that's a shorter loan period, that's why we didn't put exact numbers in there, and those loan periods could change, and so we're trying to minimize the necessity of changing the policy at every time something like a loan period changes, or a, you know, an overdue period changes, or something like that.
Should we have a motion before we?
Well, we're now gonna have a policy that we can motion on, being that she collected all your suggested changes. So Yeah, we can motion to approve.
We're the
You're
only
at that
one
point.
change.
They're just adding the e-resources under materials
That's not
unavailable
changing.
or
Right, that
materials
was it,
not available.
not available for
yes.
loan.
Right.
Okay.
So then can I have a motion to approve with the addition of,
I move to approve the interlibrary loan policy that is currently in draft form, the only revision being e-resources.
and a
As
second?
stated.
I second.
Move it. No further discussion, would you call the roll, please?
Trustee Peters,
Yeah.
trustee Novick,
Yes.
trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
trustee Goldstein,
Yes.
trustee Burt, yes, and trustee Elbers.
Yes. Welcome to policy, all right. Tonight, I just wanted to start the discussion. We do need a new revised strategic plan. Ours is a bit out of date, so I'm gonna work with our director to kind of find some dates, and I would like to assemble the board as a committee of the whole to start to work on that. And we'll kind of draw upon what we know, what we've read, and where we'd like to go in 5, 10, or 20 years, so. It's a bit, we're a little overdue on that, so I'll find some dates when the room's open and we'll get that thing going.
Do we need a motion to appoint a committee of the whole to?
I don't believe so, we're not spending any money, we're just, I
just
wanted
doing
to
it.
get it out on here so it always comes up and we're always gonna work on it.
Good idea.
So, and I don't want it to be just a plan, it needs to be a dynamic plan, so as times change, we can alter this thing. Our SWOT analysis for our per capita grant, this should be interesting.
You all should have received an email, the brief article that I sent you, and explanation of why we have to do this. This is required this year for the per capita grant. The state is asking boards to do what they're calling an environmental scan of their communities. And they recommend doing the SWOT analysis to do as part of that environmental scan, just looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the institution, opportunities and threats that you see as a board. And actually, it's a nice segue into, as you're thinking about this, or we're all thinking about the strategic plan. This is a document that we continue to work on, but we do need to do this as part of the per capita grant. And the per capita grant is due before our next board meeting, so that is why it's on the agenda for tonight. So I did ask all of you to take some time to consider this. I had actually also sent this out to the entire staff to get their feedback on that.
Good.
So I have compiled their analysis as well in a document. And we'll be happy to share these with you. I'm not sure if you want to see them before or after as a way to consider. I think after as well. I think it would be interesting to see how they may be the same and how they may differ, and some of the what our future looks like in terms of what the board thinks as opposed to what the staff thinks, if we're all on similar wavelength or not, and where we need to work on finding commonalities. So this is not very formal. My thought was that it was more of a discussion, and that I will compile your comments so that they can be included in the per capita grant.
I did talk to the state
Uh-huh.
about this to get more information, and the interesting thing she told me is that it is limited to 500 characters.
Yes.
So.
Yes, everything on the per
This
capita,
is not
the entire per capita grant is electronic. Their fields are very small, so we have to be
This isn't
succinct.
going to be
Right, it's not going to be.
a tome.
Though again, as I said, I certainly see this as something we can build on and that the board can build on moving forward, particularly as we think about our strategic plan and what the library looks like in a couple of years. But yes, it is only 500 characters, so we have to be short and sweet and succinct.
She read me some from some other libraries and said you can either focus on one major problem and discuss that, or make it more general.
So I don't know if we want to to do like a go around the table. I see Barbara has some things filled out.
I
I
do
know.
everything I can.
So,
Sometimes.
that's a fib, yeah.
Well, why don't you kick the football?
I don't wanna kick the football. Okay, what do I said with strengths, what I had thought about. The thing that I find a strength is adult programming, I think is excellent. And I think it's a strength. I think the programming in general, but the adult programming, I very much appreciate, even if I don't make it to a lot of the programs. It's not a lack of interest, it's a lack of time. Staff is friendly, they're helpful. I think that's very, very critical. The web is very user-friendly and helpful. The newsletter is good, the written newsletter. It's just super. There's so much in there.
Many pages,
Yeah.
yes.
If anything, I would leave off the calendar. I find it confusing.
Oh, that
Oh,
was.
no.
I know, everybody loves it, and I don't like the calendar, I like the
We
articles.
tried that, and
I know,
there was a
I know.
revolution.
I said it was my opinion, I didn't say the word.
Yes, we did try that, but,
And why don't we stop with strengths and really
Okay.
everything?
Carlotta, do you have?
The strengths that I had were the knowledgeable staff. I mean, especially in the little kids section where I spent half the morning here the other day. But the technology is very good in the library, including the webpage, because I find I'm not that computer. It takes me a while to figure things out. And it took me a while, but I figured it out, and it's very helpful once you get to know. I think the weaknesses is maybe just the size of the library itself. But I can see that even downstairs where you improved the shelving, made it look bigger. You know, you have, I think the same amount of shelves, but just the way they were set
Actually
up.
have fewer shelves now.
Lower and
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
it made it look bigger. I think the opportunities, and this is more computers and maybe some Mac courses for the adults. Not always, Microsoft.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's.
Okay. Art, did you want to add
I
anything to
just
the
thought
conversation?
if somehow we could create more electrical outlets in the building.
I thought I'd be the only guy saying that.
I think that is one of the weaknesses. Mr. Burke, did you have a chance to?
You know, I think the strength is that we're financially sound. I think that's a good thing, and most of the couple others that I have are just repetition of what's been said. And I do think, I don't know if you'd say this is a weakness, but I do think that the fact that we should be embarking on some type of a strategic plan, at least the framework would be wise, something that has, again, maneuverability. And in terms of opportunities, I think we have an opportunity, and I think this falls more on the library staff and you. I think that, and you probably are doing it, I imagine you have an ongoing system where you review different programs that you've put on and you either keep them or pitch them. And I imagine that's just something that is an opportunity, and I mean, you can stretch that to opportunity. Addition and deletion of programs that are worthwhile or deemed not so. I don't feel any threats.
No?
They changed the word from threat to something else.
Threat.
Challenges,
Yeah.
perhaps?
It's rather.
It's a better
A
word.
friendlier
Yeah,
word,
this
they
is
changed it to.
Yeah, but
You
the
wanna
SWAT, yeah,
SWAT
I
with
think
a
you can perceive it as challenges. Okay, anything else? Okay.
I had a lot of the same things.
I have a bunch
For the
more, I just.
strength.
Oh, what did other people
I
know?
liked, I think there's an excellent variety overall in the programming. I don't know how you guys think of some of that, but I think you do a very good job. The opportunities I see that we have a couple of population groups in Morton Grove that seem to be increasing, and one of them is our aging population, and the other is our non-US born population. And I think that we have opportunities to increase programming in the health spectrum and things that are geared a little more towards seniors, and also in the language learning spectrum for preschoolers that are, whose parents are not English speakers, to have conversation groups for different age groups for English acquisition.
Strengths, I think we've got pretty good community support. Our employees, the staff, and the director, I think, are very key to the operations. It's a strength here. I think the size of this building is a strength, but the layout may not be. So we don't have one of these huge buildings that some districts are trying to figure out how to use. So we just need to find a way to use our building or maximize its potential. I also think that the board is a strength because we've got a rather diverse background in all these individuals, and everybody brings a somewhat different perspective to these meetings, so I think that's pretty good.
2 physical therapists, that's so.
And
And a nurse, a doctor, and a critical.
Pretty unusual.
Your answer is we're not even
Journalists.
practicing as well.
Right.
So weaknesses, this is an aging facility. We do need more electrical outlets, and I definitely thought the lack of a strategic plan was a shortfall on our part. We're doing opportunities.
Sure, do whatever you want.
I think, kind of trending towards an e-library is the opportunity of the future. Threats, there's a
Did you see
lot.
where they opened?
San Antonio,
Yeah,
Texas
San
has a
Antonio.
few.
I brought it,
Oh, you
this
saw it
article
too?
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that
I
online.
don't want to take away from the meeting, but I just brought
Yeah.
copies for those
But-
who may not have seen it.
Threats I think are numerous, to a library, the economy, the web, all this e-information that's available. Public opinion of libraries does waver. The bookless library is coming of age apparently. And then cost and inflation is going to eat its way into everything we do. Thank you. And that's all I have to say on that.
Barbara, you said you had more?
Yeah, under weaknesses, I put fundraising. I don't know if it belongs to, but we don't have a week to friends, and it's gonna take a whole lot of work to get them going. And I think it's a big weakness, because it's that extra project we want to do, and it's not gonna happen.
We're losing our president too.
I know we are, he's getting married this weekend and moving to
Moving to
Missouri.
Missouri.
Is he moving for sure? 'Cause
Yes.
I know he had talked about that.
No, it's
saying that was
positive.
gonna fall through.
It's a done deal.
It's a done deal. I think he's. I also, going on Paul's, under opportunities, remind me what you said? I'm sorry.
Essentially said that we have the opportunity, the staff has the
Oh.
opportunity to build on or delete
Right,
programs.
because
and should be
basically,
an
right,
ongoing
right.
clearing
Got it
house, so
now.
to speak.
Because I was thinking of, I worded it a little different, but it's sort of the same area, giving staff an opportunity to bring their concerns up, to bring involvement into the development of new programs and new services, et cetera. So it's kind of the same area, getting the staff more involved if possible. Under threats, I put lead, because everything we try to do, we're gonna run into the lead problem. We can't break down walls.
Asbestos.
Oh,
Asbestos, excuse me. It's the same thing to me.
They're not in walls, they're not in the walls.
The walls are.
Yeah.
They're only
It's
in
the
the
floor and
the floor and the
ceiling.
ceiling.
But that makes a problem, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it.
We're only in certain parts, but yeah.
Okay, because it is an issue that we have to constantly face, though, if we're gonna start moving walls around and things and trying to get more electricity in. But it's just, to me, it's just there and in the way. Asbestos or not lead.
Right.
It's so much easier to
Lead
smell
would be,
lead.
You know,
Yeah,
probably at
lead
some
would
point
be-
you did have lead paint, I would not be surprised, but I
See,
don't.
I,
What you do,
you're
yeah,
showing my,
eliminate all
I'm
the
showing
walls
my
and
age when I say lead, I probably did a lot of windowsills in my day.
Really, you gotta chew on it.
Well, yeah, only when you're teething, but if you never get teeth, it doesn't matter, I guess.
Anything else?
That's pretty much it.
As I said, I'll go ahead and hand this out. A lot of the strengths the staff actually shares. I think, that, you know, we all recognize that certainly the staff, extraordinarily dedicated and capable staff that we have here. You know, and their strong commitment to public service and some of the programming, those kinds of things. So they mentioned a lot of the same things that you guys did as far as the strengths. The aging facility was certainly a concern. You want to just pass these around? And was hands down the single most cited weakness from anyone was how to deal with this aging facility and the problems that come from it. I'll give you a few minutes if you want to glance over some of what the staff said. Again, I pulled the entire staff. They could return these to me anonymously. And this is just a compilation of various comments in each of these areas.
Oh, that's what I forgot to mention too, the school outreach.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think that, you know, as I said, certainly our staff, the customer service orientation programming, the school and community outreach that we do, certainly Ivy Services and Nancy with the Homebound and, you know, Services Department with, you know, some of the seniors, is awesome.
Claude is the strength.
Claude is the strength. He's keeping our aging facility running as well as he can. But it is, I mean, the building is really a drawback. It's very difficult for us.
You know, in the past, when we talked about a satellite,
Mhm.
and it's still, to me, a possibility, because we're not reaching the residents who live west of Waukegan Road. And there's a lot, that's probably half the population of the village, between Waukegan Road and Washington.
Well, I think that certainly, you know, as we look at this building aging, you know, is that something the board wants to consider, something to consider as you talk about a strategic plan? What does the library look like in a couple of years? You know, does it make sense to
Have an EE library or a computer
you know,
satellite.
Exactly. So I mean, those are all things that, you know, as we look at this and we all recognize that that is a huge weakness of the building and it's a weakness that the staff has done an excellent job in overcoming to some extent. We're really bound by that and there's only so much we can do. And it feeds into everything else. You know, when we talk about some of the threats, particularly if you look at our library in comparison with surrounding libraries, you know, as they are able to expand and renovate their buildings, you know, what does that do to, you know, how does that affect us?
We had talked previously, years back, a few years back, prior to the present board, the building itself, really, it doesn't pay to put a lot of money into.
Right. Right. So I mean, and that again is the issue that we're up against, is that, you know, here's a building we have, funds are limited. Then again, it's not cost effective. However, we don't have an extra 25 million rent dollars around to build a new
Why
building.
not?
I
It's
know,
not
it's,
cost
so if
effective
one of
to
you,
build
if
it.
one of you build, you know, win the lotto,
I'll give you
Yeah, there you go.
$50.
Yeah.
That's a bet.
$50. First I have to buy a lottery ticket.
So,
Which you're not gonna.
you know, and I
have to
think
do.
particularly, you know, we're not alone in this, but, you know, we're competing for a dwindling piece of the pie, just in general, particularly in Morton Grove, and I think that is one of the threats, both to the library and to other organizations within the village, is that, a way to encourage, influx of businesses and people and that kind of thing to spread out that tax burden more. And that certainly is a threat that we have to live with, that we as a library, the village is struggling with the same thing. Other institutions are struggling with that as well, the schools. So, but that's, we have to say, we're worth it as well. So as I said, a smaller piece of the pie.
There's a number, I haven't read it that closely yet, but there are a number of comments that I marked already that concern me.
Okay.
For example, under weaknesses, the last comment, perceived lack of support for the library board, for the mission of the library and the staff. I would like to know more what's brought this to attention. There's a few other comments like that I guess I don't see it, and I'm curious what's being cited in these few words. And is there something we as a board can be doing to?
As I
change
said,
this?
some of these were returned to me anonymously.
I
and these were
understand that,
comments,
I
so-
do understand that, I was just wondering.
Well, I
if-
do think that it's.
If you had
it's
any
an-
ideas what some of these things refer to.
I think that, there was concern, the staff as the board was concerned last month, it's upsetting for us to see us portrayed negatively in the press. I think it's can be stressful for the staff if there's I don't want to say antagonism, but, if there's conflict on the board, if, there's a feeling that there isn't support for what we're trying to do, that would be my sense. Some of these were not signed, as I
Yeah,
said,
no,
these
I-
were just comments that were made.
I just had
But I do
this-
think it's an opportunity for the board to think about, it sounds like there's a concern that this isn't,
Right.
that you do support what we're saying, and maybe there's a perception issue, but I think that it is something that, if it's mentioned a couple times, then it is something that I think the board needs to
That's
think
where
about
I'm-
moving forward.
that's where
And does
I'm
that
going,
become
yes.
part of the strategic plan and ways to improve communication and improve the relations between the board and
Yeah,
staff?
was where I was at, I was gonna suggest to Mark to make certain that this be part of the strategic plan.
Oh, yeah, that, we need that plan.
Yeah, that we should all come, having read it a little more closely.
Yeah, and I think since there isn't direct, because it's not set up that way, just because of the way that things are set up, there isn't direct communication many times between the staff and the board. And so I think a lot of times perceptions can be made without having a full set of facts or a full understanding of what the reasoning behind something or another might be. And it would be nice if the staff had an opportunity to understand the various
No, I
feelings of the board. Of course, they can always come and,
Kathy, our
Well-
communication is through the director.
that's
Well,
what I'm
so
saying, that's what I
we-
said. By the way that it's set up, there's a limitation to it.
So let's,
That's
can I put us back on the subject at hand? Does Pam have what she needs in order to submit the SWOT analysis? So we
Yes.
can motion on this and do this. That's a discussion for another time. You
And
wanna-
I think, as I mentioned, I think this is a good starting point for,
Yes.
it's discussions of strategic planning.
Yeah.
And, something that we can all consider more in depth as we move forward with that too. So that was part of why, knowing this is very cursory
Yeah.
treatment of this, both because we don't want to be here forever and ever talking about it, and because I only have 500 characters.
Yeah, well, it looks like you've got the 500
It's-
here.
I think it's
Well, some
over,
of
yeah.
these could directly contradict, you have under strength and also under weakness.
Well, one of those, as we said, I think, is someone,
Building.
the building. I mean,
Right.
there is a group of people that do love this building.
Yeah.
And, they love the way the building feels to them when they come in, and people come in quite frequently and say, oh, that's so lovely, and, but then, on the flip side, as we think about, someone wants small group study space, or quiet study space, or a computer lab, or a media lab, or, the teen area needs to be better and separate from the rest of the people that want to do quiet study. then we start to see some of those limitations when we get beyond, oh, isn't this, it's so quaint and this is the way it was when I was a kid kind of thing. So I mean, it is a plus and a minus oftentimes.
That's where satellite could
Sure.
possibly work.
So yeah, I do believe that I have my 500 words, but I would encourage the board to use this kind of as a, at least a starting point as we consider this, our future.
Mhm.
No, I mean, a large store, there's so many
Right.
vacant buildings today.
Okay, I was just wondering what you meant.
Yes,
Yeah, I would think a storefront.
a storefront that has its own, with its own parking.
Right.
And that's,
Parking would be.
there's one right on Waukegan Road. It's available right now, just north of Dempster.
Right, right. I know what you mean.
Beckwith. Well, there's several.
Yeah, there are several,
Yeah.
fortunately.
And that's part of the problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we're not spending money or changing
Right,
anything,
we
so
don't.
there's no need to motion on. You have what you need.
I have what I
Is that-
need, right.
So we can move to communications.
The only communications, as I included in your packet, was the letter from the Sorensens.
Yes.
From Senior Warren Drive update.
Since last month's letter was read in, I would let this letter read in also.
Okay.
Trustees, would you like me to read?
No, go ahead.
Trustees, Morton Road Public Library, I wish to express my support for the trustees' removal of a 16-year-old teen employee from showing highlighted mood. I believe it is in the best interest of the families of the village to promote high moral and ethical standards for the young people in the village. We have lived in the village over 50 years and have enjoyed the library greatly. Sincerely, Willard and Lorraine Sorensen, 7306 Arcadia Street, Morton Road.
All right. Glad to have their input. Any public comments on non-agenda items this evening? We've got two.
Can I go first?
Flip a coin.
Go ahead.
My name is Larry Levin. I'm a resident of Morton Grove and a former trustee of the Morton Grove Public Library. One of the things that I seem to have completely missed, perhaps you've discussed it at a meeting that I haven't been at, but I have not heard any further discussion of accessibility. As I get older, I become more and more concerned about accessibility. And I think it's an issue that the board has to address aggressively and someplace in the very near future. The Morton Grove population is growing at both ends, both the younger and the older. And I'm at the older end, and I'm concerned.
All right, thank you.
Eric Potter, 7940 Foster Street. I'm just happy to be here. I don't want to get too much into things. I know everybody wants to run, but 2/3 of this meeting was basically stuff that could have been discussed at committee level. Like the Park District tonight, they had a meeting from 6 o'clock to 6:08. It was very efficient. Everything that was discussed in previous weeks was approved because it was discussed the week before or 2 weeks before. I think a lot of what was discussed tonight could have been discussed, like I said, at a committee level. So there was no need to go back and forth and what have you. It seems like things on the agenda were basically thrown on the agenda, and I'm not sure some of you had time to even review some of this stuff. It looks like you were looking at the documents tonight during the meeting. So that's something I think needs to be fixed. But 7 years ago, before I embarked on my unique publication, I put a phone call and left a message with the mayor at that time, and probably left about a 10-minute diatribe on his voicemail at Village Hall. And it was in reference to an OTB that was going to be built next to Menards. I'm now going to publicly state, because this is real estate and public officials can't discuss, the corner there on Menard and Oakton is the perfect spot to have a library, as well as a village hall and a shared facility. And it's not only because of the location, because of the timing, and also the proximity to the industrial areas where people are basically on an hour lunch break and they have nowhere to go. You can possibly look into an intergovernmental agreement with several entities, not only with the village of Morton Grove, but also with this library, possibly with the senior center. You could probably have mixed-use housing in that facility, as well as coffee shops, restaurants, dry cleaning, and what have you that was discussed at the train station. So I'm going to try to go to the mayor with this idea. It's been discussed in social media. possibly reusing buildings and what have you. But if you didn't know, this building is in the TIF. Village Hall needs to go, this building needs to go. In the past, I thought this building didn't need to go, but based on all the upkeep that Claude is doing and like the current issue you've had with the furnaces, you know, you're just gonna keep patching. Oriole Pool, they raised it, new pool. Next, they're gonna work on Harbor Pool. We're gonna have new facilities all over this village, and it's gonna be a cost benefit for residents because we're paying such high taxes. Granted, you've got the TIFs, and you've got these seniors frozen, but I'm gonna be a strong proponent now of a new facility. I love this building, I love this facility, but it's too small. You have to constantly reinvent based on demographics, and the shift in demographics, like Larry's saying, like I've been screaming, we have gentrification coming, the seniors are leaving, their families, you know, have grown up and left the village. You've got one person or two people living in these houses that are now either dying or moving away or going into an old folks home. They're gonna knock those buildings down, and they're gonna create McMansions, and you're probably gonna find more property tax revenue in these knockdowns. Not that I'm a proponent of McMansions, but going to Edina, Minnesota last month and talking with our former economic development commissioner, or director, and I'm not gonna quote him, he said that there was more revenue from building these McMansions than from the largest and actually the first indoor shopping center, which was built in Edina, called Southdale Shopping Center. He basically said that there's more revenue from these new homes than there is from retail revenue because of the shift to internet and what have you. So there's a lot of things that I could bring to the table, and you know, I could talk all night like you guys were talking. That should have been talked, like I said, at a committee level. So I think a positive move would be to start having these committee meetings, having them on a regular basis. If staff wants to come casually, they can. But like tonight, these people have worked since, I don't know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's 8:15 at night, and they gotta be back in,
You wanna wrap it up?
12
and end
hours.
the meeting?
well, like I'm saying, there's a lot more that has to be fixed. And a SWOT analysis and strategic plans, that all sounds good. But let's start being a little bit more proactive instead of being reactive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any reason to go into executive session? None. I have a motion to adjourn. Second?
I'll say.